Hi guys, so I'm Nathan. I work at Leanplum. What we do is we focus on mobile growth for our clients. And what that starts out with, and this is really the part that I work on the most, is kind of mapping the challenges that companies are having to reaching their retention especially. So I wanted to start off that I've titled this Speedrunning Mobile Growth, but really there is no speed run to this. And on top of that, actual speedrunning is pretty difficult, takes a lot of practice, you may know that. But either way, I want you guys to be able to walk away from this session with 3 little tricks that you may be able to do today, but you may also find that there's a couple of steps you need to have in place beforehand. So this is still the older version of my slides, but either way, it's not going to be fast nor easy. And you may recognize the character here. It's actually not the super easiest game, but it is actually not going to be easy. So I wanted to start off with a little paradigm that we call the leaky bucket. Now, imagine that you have discovered that you have a bucket and it's got a leak. How do you figure this out? You see that it's leaky. How do you identify where the leaks are? How do you go about patching these leaks? And finally, how do you actually make your bucket better over time? How do you ensure that you're using this bucket and getting the most out of it? So this sounds pretty loose and vague, but really it relates to the challenges all apps here are having today. So starting out with actually observing your bucket is really understanding where your data comes from, where your collection of data is happening, what different sources you're using, and how you're actually patching together one story from it to make it unified and reliable. Secondly, if there's a hole in your bucket, that means you have a drop-off in your retention. How are you going to go about fixing it without relying on assumptions, without just blindly trying a new product fix, without trying a new marketing strategy that just is launched to everyone? And finally, if you've moved past just patching those buckets, which is honestly just an ongoing process anyway, but if you want to move past that, let's also focus on making it better. Let's focus on making your user acquisition efforts, which we all know are pretty pricey, stickier with ultimately better engagement and better ratings for your games. So, if we want to put it into actual real terms, this is a model that's pretty common in marketing, but really relates to the challenges that everyone's working, including in product. It's called the R, so the pirate metrics. Sorry for the terrible joke, but really it just boils down into this is the kind of flow that every single user can expect to go through when they are encountering your app or your game, ultimately down to hopefully reaching the phase of actually bringing in revenue. But at every point in this funnel, you'll identify some potential causes for drop-offs. Why are people not sticking around and paying money for my game? And this can be for a variety of different reasons. For instance, why does someone not actually play your game after installing it? They may not see the value of actually playing it. It may have been recommended by someone else, which means that your referral mechanism is working to some degree, but your activation efforts are not. And so the result of all of these drop-offs combining is that the majority of players actually abandon a mobile game by day 1. And this only gets worse over time. Now, if we're going to focus on what could be the causes of this, one of the first is that you're working with a patchwork of different tools. You may be working with limited tools. You may be working with different tools saying different things. And ultimately, trying to put together the data collection and the actionability of that data is going to be an absolute hassle. So if we're going to focus on solving this, really I wanted to break this up into 3 main parts that each have a little bit of a trick that you can go away with today and try out. The first is, like I said, unifying that data and being able to build a reliable source of truth behind it. Secondly, not just trying blindly, not just changing up your game blindly, but actually testing out against these drop-offs that you found. And thirdly, and this is a really big one, and it's actually most of what we do as a mobile engagement platform, is engaging with your players rather than just hoping that they engage with your game. So, To take it back to this disjointed patchwork of solutions that are bringing in data where, to the point of your acquisition campaign saying that you're bringing in X many players every day, your CRM saying that X many players actually start up your game every day, down to your revenue tracking showing that a completely different number of players are actually paying for it. Now, if you have multiple different sources collecting this sort of information at every level, you're going to want to be able to simplify to a single source of truth and integrate where you can. And so what's most important here is being able to identify which of these tools in each level can integrate and be that single source of truth at that point. So, for instance, for your acquisition campaigns, you may want to look at your mobile your mobile measurement platforms. For your activation and retention campaigns, you may want to look at your CRM as the single source of truth, or even a customer data platform, something like Segment or mParticle. And down the line, you may want to then rely on those sources of truth as also the back end for collecting the data of how many people are paying for experiences, how many ads are being seen. So if we're going to focus on three main problems where we'll have three tricks, the first one that I'd like to discuss with you about is push opt-ins. Now, it's no secret that push notifications are seen as one of the most intrusive and annoying parts of game UX. But in essence, they remain a pretty essential part because it's one of the only ways that you can reach a player base outside of them actually being in your app. And so you essentially need to be able to focus on this or emails to be able to pull players back into the experience without the game actually doing so itself. So if your percentage of opt-in rate is actually quite low, then you've got a problem. You don't have an available channel to reach your entire player base with. So let's focus on lifting that up before your retention starts to fall apart. So here's the first trick. This is a pretty easy one. This is called push pre-permissions. So everyone knows that if you have the default opt-in permissions, the default ask for it will be presented right up front, right when someone's just installed your game. Think about retooling that. Don't ask them right up front. They haven't seen the value of your game. They don't understand why they should be trying it out. And it might even hurt the fact that they need to still try the game. They may already be turned off from your game at that point. Sorry. What you want to do is wait until they've seen an experience or tried a level or received maybe even some premium currency. At that point, you may be a little bit more convinced that they're happy with your game. They may want to try it out. They may see the value for getting push notifications to remind them that maybe a competition is ongoing. Maybe their store is refreshed. So at that point, you can really positively impact your ability to reach people through push notifications afterwards if you've actually asked them for the rights to message them at a good moment. Now, second problem is you found out that your bucket is leaky, something's wrong, you want to try a fix. Instead of just blindly trying changes, introduce them to different parts. That's a possibility here. But either way, to take it back to the problem itself, blindly introducing changes can really lead to some serious backlash, especially on public forums where you can depend on this referral from the player base. And that could be your lifeline to success. So let's not damage that. So this is what I was talking about. This is that second trick. Instead of introducing changes of your game to the complete user base, split it up. Split it up to a percentage of players. Split it up to certain segments that are lower risk or even segments that you are more confident about that you won't damage your total game reputation by just blindly introducing a fix. So this is an example from IMVU, one of our clients. They found out that during onboarding, when people were creating their avatar, it wasn't necessarily given a sense of, okay, why am I doing this? What am I expecting after this creation? So they wanted to change it up and lift the retention over time. So this was a test that they ran of testing different variants of that avatar creation with a really well-timed promotion of free currency right in the middle of that onboarding step. And what that led to was actually that the average revenue per user doubled because users were getting a nice reminder of, hey, here's all the goodies that you can get after your avatar creation. Here's some premium currency that you can go and use to buy clothes or whatever. So just timing this at the right moment, sending it to the right segments, and splitting out your tests to not just impact everyone blindly is already a pretty big step forward in being able to experiment much more quickly without introducing too much risk. Now, here's a common problem as well. And this is boiling back to that just waiting for players to engage with your game rather than you engaging with them in turn. This is most of the players as we go back to that chart of retention dropping after day one. They go through onboarding, they may have tried the game one time, and after that, any sort of messaging that you're trying to do is really just hoping to reactivate them, if you're even sending messaging at all. So I've changed the title of this slide in the newest version, so I'll just explain it. But really, the third trick here is not just re-engaging, but it's re-engaging with an incentive. Give them something to come back. Free shit is something nobody's ever complained about. So give someone maybe a little bit of premium currency, a reminder that there's something ongoing, a compelling event to draw them back, instead of just saying, hey, we miss you. So this is an example of a company we work with, Via. It's not in gaming, but it is a mobility partner. And what they did was really just send out a voucher code after 7 days or 14 days of dormancy. Now, this gets around that complaint of sending irrelevant and excessive push notifications and messaging in that you're really just packaging something quite nice for them. It incentivizes them to come back, and it doesn't necessarily impede your success because you're reaching out to players that are dormant anyhow. So, as the final kind of statement here, mastering your bucket and fixing all those leaks doesn't have to be a risky thing, doesn't have to be an effort that you shouldn't be making. It definitely behooves to work on how you're engaging with your players, work on how you're testing out product changes over time, and addressing those different channels that you're engaging players with before you focus on anything else. And just as a little final statement, so this is what Leanplum also does for its clients. We provide a platform that kind of integrates a whole number of different solutions, including your MMPs, including analytics platforms, so that you have a better understanding of what's really going on within your app and how to engage with players. And that's basically it for me. Thank you.
Nathan, fantastic. Guys, do we have questions for Nathan? Right over here.
Hi. Do you have any benchmark of approval rates for push notification, like opting in for push notification?
Yeah, actually, if you'll go back to the slide itself, the figure is actually that, at least on iOS, only 42% of all app users opt in for push notifications. And this is lifted significantly if you ask for that opt-in at a point where you think that they're happier.
To follow up with that, do you ever find that rewarding people who opt in works well? Or do you find that they just opt in to get the reward and then completely ignore everything you send?
Honestly, I think the former happens a lot more. And yes, what we've seen among our clients is that it definitely happens that if you have your opt-in, that you're a reachable player, if you reward players for that, not just through relevant communication afterwards, but actually giving them something for it, then for sure their retention goes up multiple times. I don't have the number on me, but that's definitely the case.
Fantastic. Couple more questions for Nathan. All right, Nathan, will you be around so people can absorb all of this, digest it, track you? Oh yeah, I've got a question about an hour from now.
Sure, I'll be around. Please feel free to add me on LinkedIn or come hit me up, and we can always talk.
Fantastic, Nathan.
Cool.
Thank you very
guys.
much. Fantastic.